I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to cheat. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who needed more. But loneliness will make you do things you swore you never would. And it all started with one message on a night I couldn't take it anymore. Drew had always imagined that love was supposed to feel like coming home. Safe, warm, effortless. At 33, he thought he had finally found it with Logan. Logan, with his messy brown hair, boyish smile, and a laugh that made Drew forget about the weight of the world. But somewhere along the way, comfort had turned into loneliness. Most nights, Drew would come home to find Logan sunk deep into the couch, headset on, controller clutched tightly in his hands, shouting at teammates through the screen. "One more match," Logan would say without even looking up. "Then we can hang out, babe." Hours would pass. Dinner would get cold. Drew would eventually give up and crawl into bed alone. It wasn't that Drew didn't love him. He did. But lately, it felt like loving Logan was like loving a memory, something sweet and distant that couldn't quite reach him anymore. Sex had become a memory. Too. The casual touches, the kisses that used to spark heat, all faded. If Drew reached for him, Logan would yawn and mumble, "Tired. Long day." There was always a reason. There was always tomorrow. Drew had needs, but more than that, he had a heart that was starving for connection. One night, after another dinner eaten alone and another silent ride home from work, Drew sat on the edge of their bed staring at his phone. His thumb hovered over the Grindr icon he hadn't touched in over 2 years. He told himself it was just a look, just to remember that he was still wanted, still seen. He tapped it. Within minutes, the messages started rolling in, some crude, some desperate. He was about to close the app when a new message popped up. Marcus 48. "You look like you could use a real man." Drew chuckled under his breath. Bold, confident, intrigued, he opened the profile. Marcus was older, salt and pepper hair, strong jaw, eyes that looked like they had lived 1,000 lives and still knew how to smile. They started talking. It was easy, natural. Marcus asked real questions, didn't rush, didn't send unsolicited photos. He wanted to know about Drew, what he liked, what he wanted, what he missed. Hours slipped by. Drew barely noticed when Logan stumbled into the room and collapsed on the bed, snoring almost instantly. For the first time in months, Drew felt something other than numbness. He felt alive. And deep down, he knew this was the beginning of something he couldn't undo. Some part of me knew that meeting him would change everything. Some part of me craved it. I wasn't just looking for attention anymore. I was looking for something real. And Marcus, he was all too real. The first time Drew saw Marcus in person, it hit him like a punch to the chest. They met at a small coffee shop a few towns over. Neutral ground, low risk. Drew sat in a corner booth, nerves chewing at the edges of his confidence, wondering if he should bolt, wondering if he was a terrible person for even being there. And then Marcus walked in, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a black leather jacket that looked like it had seen a lifetime of stories. His eyes scanned the room once before landing on Drew, and when he smiled, Drew felt everything inside him unravel a little. Marcus slid into the booth across from him like they'd known each other for years. No awkwardness, no apologies. "You're even more handsome in person," Marcus said, voice low and rough like a song Drew wanted to memorize. Drew laughed nervously, ducking his head. "You're not so bad yourself." They talked about nothing and everything, about bad dates and favorite movies, about work frustrations and childhood dreams. With Marcus, Drew didn't feel like he had to perform or impress. He could just be. There was a quiet strength to Marcus, a steadiness Drew hadn't even realized he was starving for. When their coffee cup sat empty and the evening shadows grew long, Marcus leaned across the table, his hand brushing lightly against Drew's. "You want to get out of here?" he asked, voice a little softer now, a little more dangerous. Drew hesitated. His mind screamed about loyalty, about Logan, about the life he was risking, but his body answered before he could. "Yeah," Drew said, almost whispering. "Yeah, I do." They ended up at Marcus's apartment, a clean, modern space that smelled faintly of leather and aftershave. As soon as the door clicked shut, something shifted between them. Marcus stepped closer, cupping Drew's face in his hands, his thumb brushing over Drew's cheek like he was something precious. For a moment, they just stared at each other, the air electric, the silence louder than any words. Then Marcus kissed him. Slow, deep claiming. Drew melted into it, hands grabbing at Marcus's jacket, pulling him closer. Marcus's body was solid against his, warm and real in a way Drew hadn't felt in so long he almost forgot what it was like. They stumbled toward the bedroom, kissing, touching, breathing each other in. It wasn't rushed or desperate. It was patient, hungry, intentional. Marcus undressed him like he was unwrapping something valuable. Every touch, every glance, told Drew, "I see you. I want you." They fell into the bed together, bodies tangling in the dark, skin against skin, mouths finding each other again and again. Drew gasped when Marcus kissed down his chest, worshipping every inch of him like he was something to be cherished, not just used. When they finally came together, it wasn't just about release. It was connection, fire, recognition. Afterward, Marcus pulled Drew against him, wrapping an arm around his waist, pressing a kiss to his temple. Drew lay there, heart racing, staring into the dark. He had crossed a line he could never uncross, and he didn't feel regret. He felt alive. He felt wanted. But he also felt trapped, caught between the life he had and the life he suddenly realized he could have, and soon he would have to choose. I thought maybe I could pretend. Pretend nothing happened. Pretend I wasn't thinking about Marcus every second I was awake. But some truths are too big to bury. And once you taste something real, going back feels like starving. Drew came home late that night. The apartment was dark except for the flicker of a video game menu screen. Logan was passed out on the couch, controller slipping through his fingers, mouth slightly open in sleep. Drew stood there for a long moment, just watching him. This boy, because that's what Logan looked like now, a boy, had once made Drew feel unstoppable, had once lit him up with dreams about forever. But standing there now, Drew just felt hollow. He slipped into the shower, scrubbing Marcus's scent from his skin, even though a part of him wanted to keep it, to stay wrapped in that feeling of being wanted, needed, seen. Climbing into bed, he stared at the ceiling for hours, listening to the faint clicks and hums of Logan's gaming system still running in the other room. The next morning was no better. Logan shuffled into the kitchen in pajama pants and a wrinkled t-shirt, hair messy, eyes glued to his phone. "Morning." Logan mumbled, not looking up. Drew waited. For a kiss. For a touch. For something. Nothing came. "You working today?" Drew asked, voice too casual. Logan shrugged. "Nah, day off. Might stream for a few hours." "Of course. Maybe we could go out later," Drew offered carefully. "Grab dinner. Maybe see a movie." Logan gave a half smile, the kind Drew used to find charming, but now just felt lazy. "We'll see. If I'm not too tired." The words hit harder than they should have. Drew nodded, pretending he understood, pretending it didn't feel like he was drowning inside his own life. The hours dragged. Logan stayed glued to his games, laughing and shouting into his headset. Drew sat on the balcony alone, scrolling through his phone, rereading old messages from Marcus. "You deserve to be someone's priority, not an afterthought." That's what Marcus had said last night, between kisses, between promises Drew wasn't sure he was ready to hear. And God help him, he believed it. By sunset, Drew couldn't take it anymore. "I'm going to head out for a bit," he said, grabbing his keys. Logan barely glanced at him. "Cool. Grab some snacks if you go by the store." Drew forced a smile he didn't feel. "Yeah, sure." He drove aimlessly, heart pounding, mind racing. He could go back home. Pretend everything was fine. Pretend the loneliness didn't matter. Or he could answer the text blinking on his screen. "Marcus, miss you already. Door's open if you want to talk." Drew pulled over, staring at the message, hands trembling slightly. He was standing at the edge of something dangerous, something beautiful, something he wasn't sure he deserved. But maybe, just maybe, he was ready to find out. There's a moment, right before you let go, where the fear is almost enough to make you stay. Almost, but then you realize You've been letting go for a long time. Tonight just makes it official. Drew didn't even think about it. He just drove. His car seemed to know where it was going before his brain caught up. By the time he parked in front of Marcus's building, his hands were steady. His heart wasn't. He sat there for a moment, staring at the front door, every possible future crashing through his mind at once. And then the door opened. Marcus stood there in sweatpants and a fitted t-shirt, barefoot, holding a mug of coffee like he'd been expecting him. "Come in," Marcus said, voice low and sure. And Drew did. Inside, everything smelled warm and rich. Fresh coffee, clean linen, a faint hint of Marcus's cologne. It wrapped around Drew like a hug he hadn't realized he needed. Marcus set his mug down and crossed the room without hesitation. No games. No questions. He cupped Drew's face, searching his eyes. "Rough night?" Drew nodded, swallowing hard. His throat felt too tight for words. Marcus kissed him then, slow and deep, like he was trying to anchor Drew to something solid. And Drew let him. Their bodies pressed together naturally, mouths hungry but tender, hands roaming in slow exploration. Drew clutched at Marcus's shirt, needing something to hold on to, needing him. Clothes came off in pieces, tossed to the floor in a trail of surrender. Marcus guided Drew to the couch, straddling his hips, pressing kisses along his jaw, down his neck, across his chest. It wasn't frantic. It wasn't rushed. It was worship. When Marcus finally eased Drew down against the cushions and moved inside him, Drew felt the last of the walls inside him break apart. It wasn't just sex. It was a claiming, a reminder. You're not invisible. You're not an afterthought. You're wanted. They moved together, finding a rhythm that felt less like lust and more like breathing. Every touch, every kiss, every whispered gasp pulled Drew further from the life he thought he had to settle for. Afterward, they lay tangled together, hearts pounding, skin slick with sweat, breathing the same air. Marcus brushed a strand of hair from Drew's forehead, his touch unbearably gentle. "You don't have to stay stuck," he whispered. And Drew knew he was right. Later that night, when Drew finally went home, the apartment felt colder somehow, emptier. Logan was on the couch again, headset on, laughing into a microphone at something Drew would never understand. He barely looked up. "Hey, babe, grab those snacks." Drew stared at him for a long, aching moment. This was what he had been fighting to save. This was what he had been breaking himself for. A boy who didn't see him. A boy who didn't want to see him. And Drew realized something painful and freeing all at once. He was already gone. He just hadn't said it yet. Some conversations don't need screaming. Some breakups don't need slammed doors or thrown dishes. Sometimes the quiet hurts more, because when it's really over, you both already know. Drew waited until Logan finished his game, not because he owed him anything, but because somewhere deep down, he still respected what they used to be. He wanted to leave the ghost of their love intact, even if the body was long dead. Logan pulled off his headset and stretched, yawning. "Man, I am starving. Want to order pizza?" he said, grabbing his phone without even glancing at Drew. "No," Drew said simply. It took a second for Logan to register the word. The tone. He looked up, frowning. "No." Drew sat down across from him, hands clasped his lap, heart hammering against his ribs. "I can't do this anymore, Logan." Logan blinked like he didn't understand. "Do what?" Drew smiled sadly. "This. Us. Living like roommates who barely notice each other." Logan laughed nervously, rubbing the back of his neck. "Come on, babe. You're being dramatic. We're just comfortable." "No," Drew said again, stronger this time. "I'm lonely, and I'm tired of begging for scraps of your attention." Logan's face twisted, defensive. "I work. I'm tired too. I need time to unwind." "I'm not mad you play games," Drew interrupted gently. "I'm mad that somewhere along the way, you stopped caring whether I was still here or not." Silence filled the room. Thick, heavy. Logan's bravado crumbled a little. He looked smaller somehow. Younger. "So what?" Logan mumbled. "You're just gonna leave?" Drew stood up, feeling the weight of the choice settle onto his shoulders. but also the strange, beautiful lightness of it. I already left, Drew said quietly. The moment you stopped seeing me. Logan didn't follow him as he packed a bag. Didn't plead. Didn't shout. Maybe because he knew. Maybe because he'd been halfway gone too, for a long time. Drew stepped out into the night, bag slung over his shoulder, breathing the cool air like it was the first breath he'd taken in months. The city lights blurred around him, but his path was clear. He wasn't running away. He was running toward something, toward someone who wanted him, toward himself. His phone buzzed. "Marcus, are you okay?" Drew smiled, tucking the phone into his pocket. He would be, maybe for the first time in a long time, he would be. 6 months can change everything. The pain fades. The doubt's quiet. And sometimes, if you're lucky, the love you thought you'd never find shows up when you stop chasing it. The morning sun poured through the windows, warm and golden. Drew shifted under the sheets, blinking awake slowly, a smile already tugging at his lips before his mind even caught up. Marcus was beside him, one arm slung lazily across Drew's waist, his chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. His hair was a little messy. His face was peaceful. Drew traced his fingers along Marcus's jawline, memorizing every line, every small imperfection that somehow made him perfect. 6 months. 6 months since the night Drew packed his bag and chose himself. 6 months since he opened his heart to someone who treated it like it was something precious, not something disposable. Their life wasn't perfect. They still had small fights about laundry and whose turn it was to cook. But there was laughter now, trust, passion that didn't feel like a transaction, but a conversation between two bodies that knew exactly how to speak to each other. Marcus stirred, blinking open sleepy eyes. He smiled, slow and real. "Morning, beautiful," he rasped. Drew laughed softly. "You're the beautiful one." Marcus pulled him closer, nuzzling his neck, his hands sliding beneath the sheets, warm and sure. I think we should call off today. Stay right here." Marcus whispered against the skin. Drew shivered, his body already responding. "I thought you had meetings," Drew teased. "Cancel them. You're more important." Marcus kissed him then, lazy, deep, thorough, a kiss that promised hours they had no intention of wasting. Their bodies tangled under the sheets, hands roaming, lips exploring. Drew arched into Marcus's touch, the kind of soft, desperate sound slipping from him that only Marcus ever got to hear. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't just about release. It was about worship, about gratitude, about choosing each other over and over again. Marcus moved inside him with a tenderness that made Drew's heart ache in the best way. Their bodies rocked together, slow and deliberate, the world narrowing down to just their shared heat, their whispered names, the steady pulse of something bigger than either of them. When they finally collapsed against each other, breathless and spent, Marcus pressed a kiss to Drew's forehead and murmured, "I love you." Drew smiled, heart full to bursting. "I love you, too," he whispered back. He meant it, every word, every breath, because for the first time in his life, Drew wasn't just surviving. He wasn't waiting to be seen. He wasn't begging for attention. He was home. And this time, he was exactly where he was supposed to be,